In the fitful moonlight coming through the holed roof, he could see the 3 farmhands still cowering in a corner. Next to them, a mother rocked her infant. An older child stood close, her eyes flashing fearfully at every sound. Now the old man was dead. His 2 slaves squatted next to the body, sunk in a stupor of misery. At least there would be no more of his tortured whimpering. He wore a toga, making him out to be a patrician of sorts, but it hadn't saved him from a brutal, casual hacking by the invaders before he'd managed to flee. Outside in the darkness, a distant wolf howled, a mourning for the travails of a proud city falling to the forces of darkness. Nikander shivered at the flesh-crawling sound. In the year of our Lord, 549, a great empire was now meeting its end. He hadn't heard any drunken laughter or sounds of rampaging destruction from the farmhouse for some time. But the nearby villa was a different matter. The Ostrogoths were again busy at their plunder there. But if they heard noise, they would come looking. He eased more into the shadows. If they broke in, would they be content with butchering the 6 below and not glance up? He caught himself. The little group were fellow human beings. But what could he do? He was just one man without so much as a knife. They were strangers. Did he owe them anything? Coldly, he concluded that they were in no different position to himself, helpless before the flooding tide of barbarians. Therefore, like him, they must take their chances with whatever scraps of fortune the gods threw their way. It had all happened so fast. The capital had long moved to Constantinople, while the ancient city of Rome had declined and decayed. However, the emperor in the east, Justinian, had been increasingly successful in his bid to restore the old glories of Rome. He'd unleashed the gifted general Belisarius on the Huns, Goths, and Ostrogoths, and other enemies until the populace felt they could breathe easily. But then he had unaccountably recalled his general, in a fit of jealousy, some said. The beaten hordes had seized their chance and struck back, the wild and cunning Totila of the Ostrogoths thrusting aside the leaderless army to take Rome itself. Nikander would never forget that night. The rumour had spread that the traitors had opened the gates to the Ostrogoths. Panic-stricken crowds scattered before crazed horsemen wielding axes and swords, screaming in bloodlust. An unstoppable flood came on, fanning out among the ancient magnificents to plunder and destroy. The wise had hidden. Those witless with fear who had not were mercilessly run down and killed. Females were raped in full view on the street. Hoarse yells, screaming, flames, the reek of destruction drifting in a choking haze. The chaos and carnage had never abated. Nikander had watched from his hiding place as his warehouse was set alight by the rampaging barbarians. 200,000 solidi worth of incense going up in thickly scented smoke. He was a merchant with a business in the old quarter of the city, but now that was over. He was finished. And he'd lost no time in fleeing for his life to the countryside, while the Ostrogoths were greedily occupied in their looting. He'd deliberately fled alone, fearing that groups of people would be more likely to attract attention. It had been a terrifying and exhausting struggle over the hills with his little bundle of possessions, avoiding scattered bands of marauders until daylight had threatened. He'd looked for the nearest hiding place and found this ramshackle farm outhouse, but was taken aback to find it already occupied by others in the same dire need. They'd spent the day in a trembling funk, waiting for who knew what. Towards evening, a throng of Ostrogoths had cantered past to plunder the villa close by.